Chapter 1. The Dream That Started It All. Tom was a young boy who loved to play football. But there was one thing Tom didn't like: English. He found it hard to read and understand. One day, Tom's teacher told him that English was important. "If you learn English well, you can talk to many people around the world," she said. Tom wanted to be a football player, but he knew that English would help him, so he decided to try. That night, Tom had a dream. In the dream, he was talking to his favorite football player. But they were not speaking in his language. They were speaking in English. Tom understood every word. When he woke up, he felt strange. How could he understand English so well in his dream? Tom decided to tell his friend Sam about the dream. Sam was very good at English and always got the highest marks in class. "That's an interesting dream, Tom," Sam said. "Maybe your brain is telling you that you can learn English while you sleep." Tom laughed. "That's funny, Sam. But how can I learn while I'm sleeping?" Sam smiled. "There's a way. Have you heard about learning with music or stories? Some people listen to English songs or stories before they sleep. It helps them learn without even trying." Tom was curious. "Do you think it will work for me?" "It might," Sam replied. "But you have to try it for a few nights. Let's find some English stories for you to listen to." That night, Tom put on his headphones before bed. He found a simple English story on his phone and played it. As he listened, he slowly fell asleep. The next morning, Tom didn't feel different. But when he was reading a book later that day, he noticed he could understand a few more words than before. Was the story in his sleep helping him? Chapter 2. The First Steps. Tom was excited. Maybe he could really learn English while sleeping. Every night he listened to a different story. Sometimes it was a fairy tale, and other times it was a story about animals. The stories were simple, just like the ones he read in school. Tom began to look forward to bedtime because it was a time to learn without studying. After a week, Tom noticed something. When his teacher asked him to read aloud in class, he didn't feel as nervous as before. The words didn't seem as difficult, and he could understand the sentences better. "Tom, your reading is improving," his teacher said. Tom felt proud. He told Sam about it. "It's working, Sam. I'm learning English while I sleep." Sam was happy for him. "That's great, Tom. But remember, listening is just one part. You should also try to speak more in English." Tom nodded. "I will. But what should I say?" "Anything you want," Sam replied. Start with simple sentences like, "How are you?" or "What is your name?" You can also try to talk about things you like football. Tom decided to practice. The next day, he asked his teacher in English, "Can I play football after class?" His teacher smiled and replied, "Yes, you can." Tom felt even more confident. Every day, Tom listened to stories at night and tried to speak in English during the day. He made some mistakes, but that was okay. His friends and teacher helped him. Tom felt that learning English wasn't as hard as he thought. Chapter 3. The Power of Repetition. As weeks passed, Tom's English improved more and more. He noticed that some words and phrases kept coming up in the stories he listened to. Words like happy, beautiful, and strong were used many times. Each time he heard them, they became easier to remember. Tom realized that repetition was helping him learn. He shared this with Sam. "I keep hearing the same words in the stories, and now I know what they mean." "That's great, Tom," Sam said. "Hearing words again and again helps your brain remember them. The more you listen, the more you learn." Tom was happy to know this. He started listening to the same stories more than once. Each time he understood a little more. Sometimes he even repeated the words aloud after hearing them in the story. This helped him remember them better. One day, Tom's teacher asked the class to write a short story. Tom decided to write about a boy who loved football. He used some of the new words he had learned from listening to the stories. When he finished, he read it to the class. His teacher was impressed. "Tom, your English has improved so much. Keep up the good work." Tom felt proud. He knew that listening to stories while sleeping was helping him learn. He wasn't afraid of English anymore. In fact, he started to enjoy it. Chapter 4. Learning with Friends. Tom's success with learning English made him more confident. He started to share his learning method with his friends. "You should try listening to stories at night," he told them. "It really helps." Some of his friends were curious and wanted to try it too. Tom helped them find simple English stories and showed them how to listen before going to sleep. After a few days, his friends began to notice a difference as well. They could understand more words and were less afraid to speak in English. Tom and his friends started to practice speaking English together during lunch breaks. They made a game out of it. Whoever could use the most English words correctly in a sentence would win. They laughed and had fun while learning. Their teacher noticed the change. "It's great to see you all working together to improve your English," she said. "When you learn with friends, it becomes easier and more enjoyable." Tom agreed. He liked learning English with his friends. They encouraged each other and celebrated each other's progress. It made learning fun and less like work. Chapter 5. The Big Challenge. One day, the teacher announced that there would be a big English quiz. The quiz would have reading, writing, and speaking parts. Tom was a little nervous, but he felt ready. He had been listening to stories every night and practicing during the day. He knew he had improved a lot. The day of the quiz arrived. Tom took a deep breath and started with the reading part. The passages were a bit longer than what he was used to, but he could understand most of them. He answered the questions carefully. Next was the writing part. Tom had to write a short essay about his favorite hobby. He chose to write about football. He used many of the words he had learned from the stories. Finally, it was time for the speaking part. Tom had to talk about a topic chosen by the teacher. His topic was, "Why is learning English important?" Tom thought for a moment. He remembered his dream and how it all started. Then he began to speak. "Learning English is important because it helps us talk to people from other countries. It helps us understand books, stories, and even games. I started learning English by listening to stories while I sleep. It has helped me a lot, and now I enjoy learning English." The teacher smiled. "Well done, Tom. You have come a long way." When the quiz results came back, Tom was thrilled. He had done well in all parts. His hard work was paying off. He felt proud and more motivated to keep learning. Chapter 6. The Journey Continues. Tom's journey in learning English didn't stop after the quiz. He continued to listen to stories every night. But now he also started listening to songs and watching cartoons in English. The more he listened, the better he understood. Sometimes he even tried to sing along or repeat the lines from the cartoons. His friends joined him in this new way of learning. They would watch English cartoons together and discuss what they understood. Tom noticed that his vocabulary was growing. He could understand more words and even some idioms. He felt like he was becoming fluent in English. One day, Tom's teacher gave him a new challenge. "Tom, I want you to try writing a longer story in English. Use all the words and sentences you've learned so far. You can make it about anything you like." Tom was excited. He decided to write a story about a football match where his team won the championship. He used all the new words he had learned and even tried to include some dialogue. When he finished, he read it aloud to his teacher and friends. They all clapped and praised his efforts. "Tom, your story is wonderful," his teacher said. "You have improved so much. Keep practicing, and you will become even better." Tom smiled. He knew that his journey of learning English was far from over. He still had a lot to learn, but he wasn't afraid anymore. He was excited to see how much more he could improve. Chapter 7. Teaching Others. As Tom became better at English, he started helping other students who were struggling. He remembered how hard it was for him at the beginning, so he wanted to make it easier for them. He told them about his method of listening to stories while sleeping. "Just try it for a few nights," he would say. "You'll be surprised at how much you can learn without even knowing it." Some of the students were skeptical at first, but they decided to give it a try. After a week, they noticed that they were understanding more in class. They came to Tom to thank him for his advice. Tom felt happy that he could help others. He realized that teaching others was also a way of learning. When he explained things to his classmates, it made him think more deeply about the English language. Chapter 8. The Surprise Visit. One day, Tom's school announced that a special guest would be visiting. The guest was a famous author who wrote children's books in English. Everyone was excited, but Tom was a little nervous. What if the author asked him a question? What if he didn't understand? The day of the visit arrived. The author, Mr. Brown, was kind and friendly. He spoke to the students about the importance of reading and writing in English. Then he asked if any students wanted to share their own stories. Tom's teacher looked at him with a smile. "Tom, would you like to share your story?" she asked. Tom hesitated, but then he remembered all the nights he spent listening to stories and all the practice he had done. He took a deep breath and stood up. He walked to the front of the class and started reading his story about the football match. As he read, he noticed that Mr. Brown was listening carefully and smiling. When Tom finished, the class clapped and Mr. Brown stood up. "That was a wonderful story, Tom," Mr. Brown said. "You have a great imagination and a good grasp of English. Keep writing and practicing, and who knows, maybe one day you'll be a famous author too." Tom couldn't believe what he heard. A famous author had just praised his work. He felt more motivated than ever to continue learning and improving his English. Chapter 9. A New Dream. That night, Tom had another dream. In the dream, he was much older, and he was sitting at a desk writing a book. The book was in English, and it was about his journey of learning the language. Tom saw himself reading the book to children who were eager to learn. He was happy to see how his story could inspire others. When Tom woke up, he thought about the dream. It gave him a new goal. He wanted to write his own book someday. He knew it would take time and a lot of practice, but he was ready for the challenge. After all, he had already come so far. Tom continued to listen to English stories every night. He also started reading more books in English during the day. Each day he felt more comfortable with the language. He knew that with hard work and dedication, he could achieve his dream. Chapter 10. The Road to Mastery. Tom's journey didn't stop with just one story. As he continued to grow, he became more passionate about mastering English. Every night he stuck to his routine, listening to stories, songs, and even speeches in English while he slept. He also started waking up a little earlier each day to review what he had heard during the night. He found that this quiet time in the morning was perfect for reinforcing his learning. Tom's teacher noticed his dedication and began giving him more challenging tasks. "Tom," she said one day, "you've improved so much that I think you're ready for something more advanced. How about trying to read a novel in English?" The thought of reading an entire novel in English seemed daunting at first, but Tom was determined. He chose a book that was still a little simple, but longer and more complex than the stories he was used to. It was about a young boy on an adventure in a magical land. The language was richer, with many new words and expressions. At first, Tom struggled. There were many words he didn't know, and the sentences were longer and more complex. But he didn't give up. He kept a dictionary by his side and looked up every word he didn't understand. It took him much longer to finish a chapter than it did with the stories he used to read, but he felt a great sense of accomplishment each time he completed one. Tom also began to notice something interesting. The more he read, the more familiar the new words became. He realized that the same words and phrases kept appearing throughout the book. Each time he encountered them, he understood them a little better. Slowly, these words became part of his vocabulary. Tom's friends noticed how much he was improving and started asking him for advice. "Tom, how do you manage to learn so much?" they would ask. Tom would smile and say, "It's all about practice. I listen to English every night, and I read as much as I can during the day. It's not always easy, but it's worth it." His friends admired his dedication and started following his example. They too began reading books in English, listening to English songs, and even watching movies in English with subtitles. Together they created a small club where they would meet once a week to discuss what they had learned. This helped them stay motivated and continue improving. Tom's teacher was thrilled with the progress the students were making. She encouraged them to keep challenging themselves. "Remember," she said, "the more you expose yourself to English, the more natural it will become. Soon, you'll be thinking in English without even realizing it." Tom was excited by the idea of thinking in English. He began to practice this on his own. Whenever he was alone, he would try to describe everything around him in English. At first, it was difficult, but with time, it became easier. He found that he could express his thoughts more clearly, and his confidence grew. Chapter 11. A New Challenge. As Tom became more comfortable with English, he started looking for new challenges. One day, his teacher introduced a project that caught his interest. "We're going to start a pen pal program," she announced. "You will each be paired with a student from another country, and you will write letters to each other in English." Tom was paired with a boy named Max, who lived in the United States. Max was the same age as Tom, and he also loved football. Their teacher gave them a list of topics to write about, like hobbies, school life, and favorite foods. Tom was excited but also a little nervous. He had never written a letter in English before. What if he made mistakes? What if Max didn't understand what he was trying to say? But when Tom received Max's first letter, he felt more at ease. Max's English was clear, but he also made some small mistakes. Tom realized that it was okay to make errors. What mattered was that they were trying to communicate and learn from each other. Tom carefully wrote his first letter, telling Max about his love for football and his journey of learning English. He mentioned how he listened to stories every night and how it helped him improve. When he sent the letter, he felt proud of what he had written. Max replied quickly, and soon they were exchanging letters regularly. Tom looked forward to reading Max's letters and learning about life in another country. He also enjoyed writing back and sharing his own experiences. Through these letters, Tom learned a lot about American culture, and his English improved even more. Their letters grew longer as they became more comfortable with each other. They discussed everything from football strategies to their favorite books and movies. Tom found that writing in English was becoming easier and he was making fewer mistakes. He also began to use more complex sentences and expressions that he had learned from the stories and books he had read. One day, Max asked Tom if he had ever considered visiting the United States. "Maybe one day we can meet in person and play a football match together," Max wrote. The idea thrilled Tom. He had never traveled outside of his country before, but the thought of visiting a new place and meeting his pen pal was exciting. He began to dream about what it would be like to speak English fluently and travel the world. Chapter 12. Speaking with Confidence. As Tom's reading and writing skills improved, he realized that there was one area where he still needed more practice: speaking. Although he could write and understand English well, he found it challenging to speak fluently. He would sometimes hesitate or struggle to find the right words during conversations. Tom decided to take this challenge head-on. He started speaking more English at home, even when he was alone. He would describe what he was doing, talk to himself about his day, and even pretend to have conversations with his favorite football players. This self-practice helped him become more comfortable with speaking English. One day, his teacher announced that the school would be hosting an English-speaking competition. Students were encouraged to prepare a short speech on any topic they liked. Tom saw this as the perfect opportunity to challenge himself. He decided to talk about his journey of learning English. He wanted to share how listening to stories while sleeping had helped him, and how much he had improved over the years. Tom spent days preparing his speech, practicing in front of the mirror, and timing himself to make sure he didn't go over the time limit. The day of the competition arrived, and Tom was nervous. He had never spoken in front of such a large audience before. But when it was his turn, he took a deep breath and walked confidently to the stage. He started his speech slowly, making sure to pronounce each word clearly. As he spoke, he remembered all the stories he had listened to, the books he had read, and the letters he had written to Max. He realized that all of these experiences had prepared him for this moment. His nerves began to fade, and he started to enjoy speaking. He could see his teacher smiling in the audience, which gave him even more confidence. When Tom finished his speech, the audience clapped loudly. He felt a rush of pride. He had faced his fear and done something he never thought he could do. After the competition, many students and teachers came up to him to say how much they enjoyed his speech. Although Tom didn't win first place, he felt like a winner. The experience had shown him that he was capable of much more than he had imagined. It also motivated him to keep practicing and improving his speaking skills. Chapter 13. The Summer Camp Adventure. That summer, Tom's school offered a special program, an English language summer camp. The camp was designed to help students practice English in a fun and immersive environment. It included activities like drama, music, sports, and storytelling, all conducted in English. Tom was excited to attend. He knew that this would be a great opportunity to practice everything he had learned. At the camp, he met students from different schools, all eager to improve their English skills. The camp instructors were native English speakers, which meant that Tom would have to communicate in English all the time. The camp started with a drama workshop. The students were divided into groups and given a short play to perform. Tom's group was assigned a play about a group of friends on a treasure hunt. Each student had to learn their lines and practice their acting skills. Tom was nervous at first, but the instructors were very supportive. They helped the students with their pronunciation and encouraged them to express themselves confidently. Tom enjoyed the process of rehearsing with his group. He realized that speaking English in a fun and creative way made it easier to learn. By the end of the week, Tom and his group were ready to perform. They put on costumes, set up the stage, and invited all the campers to watch. When it was their turn to perform, Tom felt a mix of excitement and nerves. But as soon as he started speaking his lines, he felt more at ease. The play was a success, and everyone clapped and cheered. Throughout the camp, Tom participated in various activities that pushed him to use English in different ways. He wrote and performed songs, played sports while giving instructions in English, and even participated in a storytelling contest. Each activity helped him build confidence and improve his fluency. By the end of the camp, Tom felt like a different person. He had learned so much and had made many new friends. Most importantly, he had become more comfortable using English in everyday situations. He realized that English was no longer just a subject in school. It was a language he could use to connect with others and have fun. When Tom returned home, he couldn't wait to tell his friends about his experience. He encouraged them to participate in similar programs and to find ways to practice English in real-life situations. He knew that the more they used the language, the better they would become. Chapter 14. A Test of Patience. Back at school, Tom's teacher announced that the class would be taking an English proficiency test. This test would measure how much they had improved in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The results would determine if they were ready for more advanced classes. Tom felt confident, but he knew that this test would be different from anything he had done before. It was a formal exam, and he wanted to do well. He spent the days leading up to the test reviewing everything he had learned. He reread his favorite books, listened to English podcasts, and even asked his teacher for extra practice exercises. When the day of the test arrived, Tom was prepared but also a little anxious. The first part of the test was reading comprehension. Tom took his time, carefully reading each passage and answering the questions. He was surprised by how much he understood. The stories he had read and the vocabulary he had learned over the years helped him a lot. Next was the writing section. Tom was asked to write a short essay about his favorite hobby. He chose football, of course, and wrote about how it had helped him make friends and stay healthy. He made sure to use the new words and phrases he had learned, and he checked his spelling and grammar carefully. The listening section was a bit more challenging. The students had to listen to a conversation between two people and answer questions about it. Tom concentrated hard, trying to catch every word. He was glad that he had practiced listening to English so much, especially through his nightly story sessions. Finally, it was time for the speaking test. Tom was asked to have a conversation with one of the examiners. They talked about his school, his hobbies, and his future plans. At first, Tom was nervous, but as the conversation continued, he relaxed. He realized that this was just like the conversations he had practiced with his friends and in his summer camp. By the end of the test, Tom was speaking confidently and clearly. When the results came back a week later, Tom was thrilled. He had scored very well, especially in reading and writing. His teacher was proud of him and recommended that he move up to a more advanced English class. Tom was excited by the challenge and eager to continue learning. But the test also taught Tom an important lesson. Learning a language is a journey, not a destination. He knew that there was always more to learn, and he was ready to keep improving. Chapter 15. The World Opens Up. With his new confidence, Tom started to explore the world of English even more. He joined an online forum where people from different countries discussed their favorite books and movies. Tom was amazed at how many people around the world spoke English and used it to connect with others. One day, Tom received a message from Max, his pen pal from the United States. Max had exciting news. His family was planning a trip to Tom's country, and they wanted to meet him. Tom couldn't believe it. The idea of meeting Max in person was incredible. When Max and his family arrived, Tom welcomed them warmly. It was a little strange at first, speaking English face-to-face with someone he had only written letters to. But soon they were chatting like old friends. They spent the week exploring the city, playing football, and talking about everything they had written in their letters. Max's visit was a turning point for Tom. He realized that learning English had given him more than just a new language. It had opened up the world to him. He could communicate with people from different countries, learn about new cultures, and make friends across the globe. After Max returned to the United States, Tom decided that he wanted to travel too. He dreamed of visiting other countries, practicing his English, and learning new languages. He knew that English would be his key to exploring the world. Tom continued his studies with even more enthusiasm. He started taking an interest in global events and reading the news in English. He also began watching documentaries and movies without subtitles, challenging himself to understand everything. One day, Tom's teacher asked him to help a new student who had just moved to the country. The student didn't speak the local language well, but he knew some English. Tom was happy to help. He remembered how challenging it had been for him to learn English, and he wanted to make the new student feel welcome. Tom's journey had come full circle. He had started as a boy who struggled with English, but now he was helping others learn. He knew that his journey was far from over, but he was excited about the future. Tom's story is a reminder that learning a language takes time, patience, and practice. But with dedication and the right tools, like listening to stories, reading and speaking as much as possible, anyone can succeed. Tom's journey continues, and so can yours. The world is full of opportunities, and with English, you can explore them all. The end.